22nd July 1937. It is 10 in the morning and Amelia Earhart, a renowned female pilot, along with Fred Noonan as her navigator, are about to undertake one of the most important flights of their life in a Lockheed Electra 10E. The journey will begin from Leh Airfield and will end once they reach Holland Island. They are going to fly continuously for the next 20 hours, covering a distance of 2,556 miles. Amelia had already flew over South America, Africa, Indian subcontinent and Southeast Asia over the past 1 month, covering 22,000 miles. Now in this final stage, she has to fly for about 7,000 miles. But the biggest challenge here is that these 7,000 miles would be over the Pacific Ocean, far away from land. And once she completes this flight, she will become the first woman in the history to circumnavigate the world. But the journey doesn't go as expected. Communication between their plane and land is lost completely. Now they are flying over massive ocean, unaware where they are heading towards. Then something terrible happens. Something no one has ever thought of. Something that is going to shock the entire world. They disappear mysteriously, leaving no trace at all, making it one of the biggest unsolved cases till this day. So what actually happened to them? Where did they disappear? Do they died, or is there any possibility that they survived? Let's find it out. There are also several crazy conspiracy theories revolving around their disappearance, which I'll talk about at the end of this video. So now fasten your seatbelts as we are about to take off on this insane journey. Amelia Mary Earhart was born on July 24, 1897 in Atkinson, Kansas. She was a kind of adventurous child from the very beginning and loved to explore neighborhood and indulged in all kinds of other physical activities. It was 28th December 1920 when she, along with her father, attended an aerial meet at Dotterley Field, California. There she paid $10 for a 10-minute flight with Frank Hawks. Later, she describes her experience as, "By the time I had got 200 or 300 feet off the ground, I knew I had to fly." Then she learned flying plane from Nita Snook as her instructor. On October 22, 1922, Earhart flew the Air-Star to an altitude of 14,000 feet, setting a world record for female pilots. In 1928, she became the first woman to cross the Atlantic Ocean. But here, Wilmer Slutz was the pilot. So in August 1928, she finally completed her solo flight across the North American continent and back. On April 8, 1931, she set a world altitude record of 18,415 feet. She undertook several flights afterwards, setting new records and becoming a sensational figure at that time. Now comes the year 1936, in which Earhart and her husband George Putnam planned for the greatest flight of her life, a flight around the world. And if she completes this flight, she would become the first woman to do so. Although several other people had flew across the world, but the route of Earhart would be the longest as it would follow roughly the equatorial route. Broad University funded $50,000 to Earhart to purchase a Lockheed Electra 10E for this flight. She got all the unnecessary items removed from the plane and added extra fuel tanks and did other required modifications. She got Harry Manning as a navigator, who was a pilot and a skilled radio operator with the knowledge of Morse code. Although he had all the skills required to be a good navigator, but George suspected that Manning and Earhart were involved romantically. So he didn't want Manning to be her navigator at all. He began pointing out his minute errors and finally got Fred Noonan as her another navigator. 17th March 1937. On board there was Earhart as the pilot with Fred Noonan and Manning as navigators, and Paul Mantz, who was the technical advisor. As the plane was taking off, it crashed, sliding on its belly and damaging both the propellers. Luckily everyone was okay, except the plane, which needs to be repaired now. No one exactly knows the actual reason of the crash. Some says that the tires blew out, others believe that the undercarriage collapsed. While according to Paul, it was the pilot's fault. This incident made Manning doubt Earhart's flying skills, and he decided to leave the flight. Although some says that he left because he was unable to extend his leaves further and he had to return to the US lines. Whatever the reason, now there was only Noonan left to navigate her throughout the journey. They both were ready for a second attempt. They left Miami on 1st June 1937 and within a month flew over 22,000 miles, covering maximum part of their journey, arriving at Lae, New Guinea on 29th June. In this last part, they have to fly from Lae to Hawaii and from Hawaii to California again. But there was a problem. The plane cannot fly from Lae to Hawaii in one go. It needs to be refueled in between. So the plan was to fly from Lae airfield to Holland Island, which was 2,556 miles away in the Pacific Ocean, where they would refuel the plane. It was going to be the most challenging part of this whole flight because the Holland Island is just 2 km long and 500 meter wide. And to find this tiny piece of land in a massive ocean was like finding a pin in a haystack. So there is no scope for any errors because if they miss it, there would be almost no fuel left for them to fly anymore and they would end somewhere in the ocean. The US government also dispatched a Coast Guard ship, Itsaka, near the Holland Island to communicate with Earhart. They would use radio direction finding, RDF, to send signals to Earhart and would signal her by sending up black smoke that can be seen from far away. They will take off at 10 am local time and would fly in east direction, crossing the international date line. Therefore, even after 20 hours of flying, they would arrive at Holland Island on the morning of the same day, that is 2nd July. On the day of takeoff, the winds were stronger than expected. This message was sent to Earhart 3 times in 2 hours, but it seemed that she didn't receive it. The winds can slow down the speed of the plane, eventually affecting the calculations they made about reaching. And here, even a minute error can be fatal. The Itsaka was not clearly able to communicate with Earhart, nor the messages sent by her received properly to them. They got a message from her saying, "We are running out of fuel." She asked Itsaka to send her signals on 3105 kHz frequency, which was actually wrong. Also, she was using the Greenwich Civil Time, while Itsaka was using Naval Time Zone designation system. This all happened because of miscommunications between them. The last message that was received on Itsaka was that they were flying along a course of 157,337 degrees. They were running in north-south direction. After that, there was no other signal or message from her. Then after approximately 1 hour of this message, began one of the greatest air-sea search operation in the history. Till this day, it is considered to be one of the most expensive search with an expenditure of $4 million at that time. But even after so many efforts, no one was able to find them or any remains of the plane. So on 5th January 1939, after several unsuccessful trials, they were officially declared dead. Now here arises several conspiracy theories about what actually happened to them afterwards. The first and most widely accepted theory was that they ran out of fuel and crashed somewhere in the Pacific Ocean. But no one exactly knows where until January 2024, when a robotics company named Deep Sea Vision announced that while doing sonar imaging of the seabed, they found out something that might be the remains of Lockheed Electra 10E. It was found 4,877 meters deep in the sea, but it is not proved yet that was it actually that plane. The another theory is very interesting, which says that they crash landed, but on the wrong island. Gardner Island, now known as Nikumaroro Island, 350 nautical miles southeast of Holland Island, is believed to be that island. Some people even reported that they got radio signals from Earhart saying, "Water's high, water's knee deep, let me out, and help us quick," after the crash. because she was using radio for communication, and those people who accidentally connected to that frequency got these messages. A human skull along with some bones were also found on that island. According to the theory, she survived a few weeks there, but later coconut crabs ate her body. But the investigators believed that the skeleton was nor of Earhart, neither of Noonan. So this theory also fails. According to the third theory, they were captured by the Japanese. At that time, the relations between US and Japan were not good. So it is believed that the Japanese captured them and took them to Marshall Island. US government searched for them everywhere except Marshall Island, as it was occupied by these Japanese. So it is very much possible that if they were captured by them, they were executed soon afterwards. Another theory is a little bit different version of the third theory. According to it, they were not executed by the Japanese, but later released, after which Earhart changed her identity as Irene Craigmile Bolam and lived in New Jersey for the rest of her life. But whenever people asked Irene that whether she was Earhart, she denied it every time. According to the experts, there were several differences in the facial features between these two women. These are all just assumptions, because there is no strong evidence proving that what actually happened to them. Until this day, it can be considered to be one of the biggest unsolved mysteries. You can let me know your opinion that which theory you believe to be most accurate.